I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is Andrew O'Donnell, Managing Director of SuperCharged Stocks. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure being here. I'm excited.
Yes, so we're here at PDAC. We last spoke in January at VRAC in Vancouver. Just jumping right in, you mentioned at that time what an unpredictable state the world is in. I would say arguably it's even more unpredictable right now. So what's your take on where we're at kind of in the global market right now?
Yeah, so my kind of thesis has been that we live in a bit of an upside down world, and that the volatility is pretty high on all fronts and everything, whether it's as small as just pop culture to general opinions on the street to the world markets. And my kind of thesis now, working on this furthering example of this, is this coronavirus, is this really like the end of the world, which it isn't, or is this just an impetus for allowing the markets to fail almost? And that's a many-sided conversation, but at the end of the day, is this the push that it needed, like that kind of one last little pebble throwing at a rock for the rock to fall apart? And someone might say yes, the markets have responded, horrifically.
Right.
But there's a lot more going on right now, I think, than just a flu.
Right, yeah, and it's really creating incredible uncertainty here, even where we are right now. I think everybody's looking around like, is everything okay?
Yes. Well, that's the thing, is that it's too early to jump in and weigh, and is it real, is it not? Of course there is a sickness. How serious it is it? I don't know. I think it's something like 56,000 people die of the flu a year anyway. So, I mean, if you're old and infirmed and you're susceptible to a heavy-duty illness, yeah, there's going to be a death toll. Two, the argument gets much more complicated because you're talking about globalism. So all of a sudden, even talk to some doctors in Vancouver, they're saying there isn't a flu season in Vancouver, it's just year-round flu because of just travel, global trade, global migration, whatnot, is that there isn't a season anymore, it's just constant flu season all the time. This is the downside to this interconnectedness of things, and that's what I talked about at VRIC was what we've actually created is an incredibly fragile system. We haven't created a robust or well-structured system at all. It's actually extremely fragile to one event. And can this one event of a flu totally destroy it? In one step, you kind of say, well, it is right now. It's wiped out all the gains. But at the same time, the argument could be those gains were fictitious and were going to be wiped out anyway because the system was kind of set up to fail.
Yeah, okay, so we don't really know what's coming next. We don't know how big the long-term impact will be, but we do know what's happening right now a little bit. So I want to ask, how has your portfolio been impacted by this? Or has it been?
Sure. Oh, of course. No, it's been hit for sure. I had not expected, I expected a reaction, but not this level of reaction. But once again, once any event that takes place that sets off a bigger event, people panic, and I totally understand. What the interesting thing is that there was a bit of a sell-off on gold. Say, okay, well, so there wasn't a flight to safety.
Yes.
There was a flight to cash, which doesn't make any sense to me because if we look at, say, what is it now, $16 trillion of negative yielding debt, essentially what you're saying is I'm willing to put money into a country or somewhere where I think it's safer, get negative return because I'm assuming the future doesn't look too positive. That's a pretty big indicator that things aren't very optimistic or really looking at, or that you believe that the growth sector is so hyperinflated that it's going to outpace that at an extraordinary level. So we're not in any kind of normal world situation here. Everything is in flux, and it's not going to get any time better any soon. This is the start, I see it. But this virus has affected people, and it has to in any cycle because they are shutting down plants, they are shutting down work. You're going to see that in lots of different countries. So yes, there will be an immediate and a lag. But I don't really see that as being, that's not the real issue that's at stake right now, is that you've made the decision to have all the commodity and all the stockpile of it and all the creation of goods pretty much in one country to save on labor costs, and now you're stuck with a problem. And that's, whether you like them or not, Trump was saying, we need to have more actual jobs of creating things back in countries. That message I'm totally for, is that we should probably be making things again. Like this whole idea that we're just an information technology countries, whether it's North America, we come up with ideas and someone else actually makes them. That doesn't fly. I don't see that. That doesn't work because you're creating a super fragile system that along the step of that supply chain of getting those goods, even getting those goods, say, from a copper mine in BC to China, to then over here, and then driven back, somehow that's more cost effective than just simply doing them in your own country. It's economically maybe cheaper because of the system you've created, but it's certainly not cheaper in the sense of any kind of social, economic, or national sense.
Okay, yeah, okay.
There's a lot there, sorry.
There's a lot. And I'm going to take you just back to current situation and two parts to this question. So investors, how should an investor be reacting in this situation? There's so much confusion and fear. And second part of the question, as companies who are taking these hits, what should the response be from them?
Yeah, I mean, once again, I don't think I've drank the Kool-Aid and think that the mining sector has massive prospects. I think this could be the start for it. It flies in the sense of some reason to say there's going to be a global recession, but yet the mining sector is going to do well. But to me, it seems, given all the information we have, that looks like it could happen because A, our sector doesn't take a lot of money to make it move. So a lot of these overblown companies, and I'll pick on some. I mean, your Ubers, your Lyfts, these aren't technology world-class, amazing idea companies. All you've done is taking a taxi and changed it a little bit, and not only that, you've hurt the general population because these poor people are working for like $3 an hour. So I don't look at that as being some big tech, amazing strategy. I think people need to go focus back and go back to basics and go, if I have to take a little bit of a longer term look at this, maybe I need to look at something that has value. So Warren Buffett looks for a market that's, is not valued properly and out of favor, which would be mining 100%. And on that note, I mean, he's a big fan of silver, doesn't like gold, doesn't think it's an actual value of currency, but he likes silver because A, there is that story, but also silver is used industrial and solar power and whatnot. So I look at going, I like owning the stuff that makes stuff.
Yeah.
Money has to go somewhere. It's not going to go, well, some of it will, but it shouldn't go more into debt that's negative yielding. That doesn't sound too attractive. So why wouldn't it go into a longer term cyclical play that's already had its butt kicked for years and years and years, that has a time scale that's a little bit longer, but also has an upside it's incredible. So I see it as being, right now is the time to be looking at mining.
Okay. Just wrapping up here, I'm going to ask you one more thing. We're really focused right now on coronavirus. That's all everybody's talking about, really. What are we missing that may be being overshadowed by that?
Oh, I mean, the entire fundamental economic system.
Everything.
Everything else, but, and it's interesting because is this, once again, this pebble of a pandemic, will we sort it out? I'm pretty sure we will. And there's lots of great juicy news, seeing what's happening in China and they're dragging people out. You know what, as hard as that is to watch, that's the best thing one could do. If you want to stop a pandemic, it isn't, can I give you a hug and you've got to get this thing sorted out. They can do that because they have a system in place to allow that. You can't do that in a Western progressive liberal democracies. Once they see that, people complain and protest, oh, you can't treat people like that. So there's a lot of different things happening, and it's not only is it that the economic numbers, whether it comes from the Fed or whether it's the stock market overinflated, there's too many messages and too many people don't believe them anymore. And that's kind of at the end of the day is, I always ask people, who told you who told you the information and why did you get it, and what are they trying to sell you? And today that's the hardest point for any part that you're getting through the news. That's the hardest bit to understand is why is someone telling me this news over something else, or their opinion on it.
Okay, all right, let's leave it there. Thank you
Perfect.
so much. Once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and this is Andrew O'Donnell with SuperCharged Stocks.